Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today we're looking at Holo Taco's new Pastel and Don't Tell collection. So this collection features a rainbow lineup of 6 new pastel creams. As always, I will have comparisons and share my thoughts at the end of the video, but for now, let's just get into the swatches. The first shade in the collection is Pinky Swear, and this is described as a sweet baby pink pastel. So this is probably my favorite from the collection because I just love a cute pastel pink like this, especially for spring. And I really like the formula on this one as well. It was pretty even coverage, as you can see on the first coat. Definitely not creamy enough to be a one coater. I feel like these almost were on the crelly side where they were just a little bit thinner. So while most of these were opaque for me in 2 coats, I tend to be a little bit heavier handed with my swatches. So if you are someone who likes thinner coats, you more than likely will need 3 to make these fully opaque. But formula aside, I think the color is super cute and I'm just really excited about this one in particular. The next shade is Rest in Peach, and this is a pastel peach cream. So I kind of thought it was funny that the little tagline on the website says, "May boring nails rest in peach," because I personally think this is like the most boring shade out of the collection. I know it's also just a personal preference. These peachy creamsicle kind of shades can just be really hit or miss for me, and I'm really not a huge fan of this one, at least maybe not as a full manicure. It probably will look just fine in a Skittle or especially in some nail art, but on its own it just didn't really wow me. And as far as the formula goes, I found that this one was a little bit thinner, so I could still actually see through to my nail line. I just don't think you could actually see that on camera. So I did do a 3rd coat just to make it fully opaque, which again, I'm not totally surprised by since my nails are long and this is definitely one of the lighter shades in the collection. So yeah, formula aside, you'll have to let me know what you think of this color because I want to like it. I really do, but I don't know, there's just something about it that I'm not super crazy about. The next shade we have is Banana Medicine, and this one is a pastel banana cream yellow. So I really like this one. I mean, I usually am a fan of pastel yellows in the spring, but I feel like this one was a lot brighter than other pastel yellows I have. So I wasn't sure how I was gonna like it because I mean, even on camera, I think it's picking up very bright, but it's still pastel. You'll see what I mean when I show some other comparisons, but color aside, the formula on this one was really nice, not streaky like some yellows can be, and it was fully opaque for me in 2 coats, though again, I probably would recommend a 3rd coat for this because it is another super light shade. But yeah, I actually really like this one and how vibrant it is, so I'm really excited to try it in some nail art. Up next we have Crime and Punishment, which is described as the perfect pastel mint polish. So I was really surprised at how much I like this one because if you know me, I'm pretty picky with greens and normally I do like minty greens, but when I saw this in the bottle, it just didn't really jump out at me. But once I swatched it, I was like, oh my god, this is actually so pretty. I think there's such a beautiful vibrancy to this shade, and it's just a little bit more elevated than other pastel greens that you normally see in spring collections. So I just really enjoy this one so much. It also kind of reminds me of like a shamrock shake or something. So I think it's just so fun and bright, and this one had a great formula. It was opaque in just 2 coats. The next shade is Too Good to Be Blue, and this is described as a sky blue pastel. So this is another one that I really enjoyed because I love these shades of blue for spring, and even though it does look like a pretty typical sky blue kind of shade, once you see some other sky blues next to it, you'll see that there's a certain powderiness to this specific shade that I think makes it a little bit softer and more flattering maybe, or at least it's more flattering if that's what you prefer, but I wouldn't call it dusty by any means because it's still a very bright shade. So this one was another one that was fully opaque for me in 2 coats, and I am definitely excited to wear this as a full manicure. I think it's such a beautiful shade of blue. And rounding out the collection, we have Serial Killer, which is described as a marshmallow purple pastel. So this is probably another favorite of mine, honestly, because it is just so bright and I just adore this shade of purple so much. It's definitely a little bit darker or maybe more saturated than other pastel purples that I normally am drawn to this time of year. And it's just so pretty to me. I think this is going to be so beautiful as a full manicure, especially in nail art or anything like that. And formula wise, this was another easy 2-coater for me. So I found this a little bit more on the creamy side compared to some of the other shades. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't be surprised if this was like the crowd favorite. And here is the collection all together. I think it is super cute. I love a good rainbow theme, so a pastel version for spring is just so up my alley. But again, Rest in Peach is the only one that kind of isn't really doing it for me. I think it's just a little too similar to Pinky Swear. But I am going to get into comparisons, and I wanted to quickly show this lineup of Mooncat shades from the Technicolor Dreams collection. The obvious difference is the orange, but these aren't exactly dupes, even though they might look like it. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of Holo Taco comparisons, so I wanted to show these swatch stick comparisons from Holo Taco's Instagram. They have a whole comparison highlight, and this shows how these new pastels compare to some of the previous ones that were retired. But to get into each individual shade, I'm starting with Pinky Swear and comparing this one to Mooncat's Euphoric from their Technicolor Dreams collection, which is a little bit more of a purpley pink kind of shade. And I also wanted to show it next to Olive Ave's newest pink called Amaryllis, which is more of a peachy pink shade. So on the nail, they definitely are very different, with Pinky Swear being the most true baby pink pastel. For Rest in Peach, I actually want to compare this to Mooncat's Lucid Dream. I accidentally showed Acidic before in the rainbow lineup, but this is the shade I meant to compare it to. And I'm also going to be showing it next to Olive Ave's Creamsicle, which is one of those creamsicle peachy orange type of shades, but it's definitely leaning very orange next to how pastel and peach the Holo Taco shade is. So altogether, none of these are even remotely similar. The Mooncat shade is definitely very peachy, but very much on the warm side of it. So I think the Holo Taco shade is the most neutral. Banana Medicine, I have Mooncat's Eternal Sunshine to compare it to, which might look similar, but Eternal Sunshine is definitely more of a whitened pastel type of yellow. And I also have it next to Olive Ave's Sunshine, which is another pretty whitened based pastel type of yellow shade. So again, the Holo Taco is picking up very bright, especially here on the nail, where it almost looks like it's a primary yellow, but I think it's just my camera freaking out. It really is a pastel yellow, but just not as white based as the Mooncat or Holo Taco shades, if that makes sense. Next up for Crime and Punishment, I actually have Matcha Maker to compare it to side by side. I picked this up before it was discontinued, and yeah, sadly, as you saw in the swatch stick comparisons, these are not dupes, but I still figured I could show you an actual side by side. And I also am comparing it to the green from Mooncat's Technicolor Dreams collection, which is called Neverland. And this one is, I guess, maybe the most similar in terms of it being like a very bright pastel kind of shade. So yeah, as you can see, Matcha Maker looks very dingy next to these two super bright greens, but even Neverland is just a little bit more on the yellow side and less of a minty green. I also wanted to compare this to Essie's It's High Time from their recent spring collection, because that was another bright kind of minty green polish. At least I thought it was. And I'm also comparing it to Olive Ave's Zinnia, which came out a couple of spring collections ago, but this one was also discontinued. And in the bottle, I thought that these were going to be dupes, so I was really excited to share that in case anybody was looking for Zinnia. But on the nail, you can see how different these shades are. Even the Essie, again, is just so, I want to say, almost dingy looking next to how bright and vibrant the Holo Taco shade is. So it's really like a pastel bleached neon kind of shade. Next, for Too Good to Be Blue, I have Mooncat's Sinking Feeling, which is the first thing that I think of when I think of a sky blue kind of shade. But I'm also going to be comparing it to Essie's Ride the Soundwaves from their recent spring collection, since this is another very bright sky blue. But as you can see, all three of these are not dupes. I would say the Mooncat and Essie shades are the most true sky blue type of shades. Like, again, there's this slight powderiness to Too Good to Be Blue that makes it lean almost like a periwinkle kind of shade, but it's still so beautiful. And lastly, for Serial Killer, I had to show it next to Mooncat's Insomniac, also from their Technicolor Dreams collection. And these definitely look very, very similar here in the bottle. And for a little change of pace, I have Olive Ave's Artie, which recently came out in their recent spring collection, but this is more of a true dusty type of spring purple. So on the nail, you can see Artie looks pretty gray compared to the Holo Taco and Mooncat shades, which, even though they look similar in the bottle, on the nail, they are definitely not dupes. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons for Holo Taco's new Pastel and Don't Tell collection. So as always, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this release, because I feel like this one's gonna be a little divisive. I personally do like this color story. I mean, as I mentioned, I love rainbow anything, and so having a pastel rainbow collection for spring is just so perfect for me. But from what I've seen on the subreddit, I feel like a lot of people are just not into this collection because they think that it's like too similar to the pastels that are now retired. And I personally wouldn't agree with that. I mean, I did show the swatch stick comparisons of these new shades next to the retired shades and even just other Holo Taco creams in their collection currently. And I feel like they're very different. They're not anything dupe worthy in my opinion. So I feel like even if you had all of the retired shades, you can get this whole collection and they're not going to be similar to the other ones, aside from the very general descriptions of a pastel yellow or something like that. So I don't know. I personally like having options when it comes to these like subtle undertone differences and whatnot. And again, generally for this collection, I really like it. I mean, I have a little Skittle on with all of them except for Rust and Peach because I didn't really like that one, but these are just so cute and so bright. And that's another thing that I really love about these, is that they just are a lot brighter than I thought they were gonna be just based off of the bottles. I thought looking at these, they were gonna be an easy to dupe kind of collection, which, you know, generally you can. I showed you the Mooncat lineup of the Technicolor Dream shades that were like almost a one-to-one match, but once they're on the nail, you can see they were just so incredibly different, and I ended up not having anything like these. Not that I have the most extensive collection ever, but I just really appreciate that these are different enough. They are brighter than your typical spring pastels and just different enough from other popular shades that you might already have. So Yeah, overall, I really like them, and I'm just not sure where you stand on that, if you think that's like a controversial take, or, you know, if you agree or disagree. Let me know down below in the comments so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.